Uh, well, well, I may be wearing a DC shirt, I know, but uh, remembering a man who, no doubt, what will go down in comic book history, no doubt about that. Stan Lee was a man who inspired me to, who was one of those men who were very inspiring in history. There is very few men who can leave behind of what he did. Very few, not a lot. You probably heard the news that Stan Lee, the one of the writers of many famous comics, many creative characters of his, like Spider-Man and Iron Man, he has passed away a couple days ago, and I just wanted to make this video because for someone who is a fan of Marvel, I think yeah, I kind of have to make a video on this. Stan Lee was one of the few people who inspired me to make content in the first place. I don't know him personally, uh, but Stan Lee was always a creative guy. So I will say right now that to those people who, I mean, even DC on Marvel's biggest rival, DC on Twitter, even congratulated the man in his life. It's amazing. So yeah, I mean, now that I mention it, Stan is no doubt one of the greatest writers of all time. It's I mean, most people these days don't even live to be 95, so we all should be proud of it. Stan was, I mean, there is, like I said in the beginning, there are very few people who can leave behind what he did. All right. I mean, he's wrote classic stories in his time as a writer. I will never forget the early days of Spider-Man. I'll never forget when he created the Avengers, the X-Men. I'll never forget those. I'll never forget the cameos he was in, all that stuff. I think it's amazing to me that someone can make that kind of content. It's like, I mean, Stan wasn't just. Stan Lee wasn't just a legend in his own right. He was a motivator. Stan Lee motivated an entire generation of people. He inspired. He inspired many people. He inspired people. He doesn't matter what decade you were in, whether it be the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, or right now. Stan Lee has inspired you in some way. And by the looks of it, his work is living on in the form of the MCU. Stan Lee will always be remembered as one of the greatest writers in comic book history. He was no doubt one of those guys where he was very perseverant because his publisher told him, who when he was creating Spider-Man, he said on Twitter that his publisher told him that it wouldn't be a good idea because people don't like spiders. Well, he didn't give up, and look what happened. All I need to say is all I need to say is just to congratulate the man. He's done some amazing things in his life, I will say. He died at the not a tender age, he died pretty old, which to these days you don't see people die like this. He died in peace. Now Now, Stan Lee was a man who changed the world. All right, the words he said will live in history forever. Whether it be the night that Gwen Stacy died, or the or the creation of the X Men. Doesn't matter if it was helping Jack Kirby write Captain America in the 40s. It didn't matter, okay? He was one of those guys where he was one of those guys that inspired people. He inspired people. He just inspired a lot of people. It's just amazing. Stan Lee was a guy that at the end, to be honest, I'm kind of glad I shared Planet Earth with him at one point. It's genuinely amazing. Um, so of course, he will be remembered as a hero in many ways. He created the X Men on this note. He admitted this himself. He wanted X Men. He created the X Men knowing that it's good to be different. I think that's fantastic. So, rest in peace, Stan Lee. I'm sure you'll make some pretty big cameos in heaven now.